Wow, you have a lot of books. Yeah, it's kind of my thing. Would you mind if I, took some home? You know, I just don't like spending money on books. I heard a lot of good things about this one. Is it good? Yeah. Oh my god, you have the House of Hades? Can I read it? Well, I mean, you know, I haven't read the Hunger Games. Would you care if I just borrowed it? You haven't read the Hunger Games? Oh my god, you have the Second City of Bones book. I'm totally gonna read it. It's called The Mortal Instruments. Are these any good? No. Do you think I could read this? If you really want to. Oh my god, Dylan O'Brien is gonna be in this movie and he is so hot, so I'm just gonna borrow this book. And then I'm totally gonna read it. I'm totally gonna read The Maze Runner. I'm sure you are. Is this the one where they kept talking about making that movie with Selena Gomez, but then they never did? Yes, it is. I'm gonna read it. Do you care if I read this? Really? Is this the one with Logan Lerman in it? Yes, but can you not? Christmas is totally coming up, so I'm gonna read this Christmas book. Are you totally going to? And then I'm gonna read this one because it looks really good. This movie is coming out too, so I'm just gonna borrow this. I haven't read that yet. Can you just— Tina Fey is the best. Isn't she? I'm just gonna take a few books home. I hope you don't mind. You'll never even notice that they're gone. Oh, I will. Thanks for having me. No problem. This happens to me entirely too often. Now, I don't have a problem with lending out books in general. Like, I know it's something that people do where it's like, oh, I just read this book, you should read it, here it is, borrow it, whatever. But for me, when I lend out a book, it's kind of like my child is spending the night at some stranger's house, but for multiple nights, until I usually have to beg for it back. I have a lot of conversations that go something along the lines of this. So I read this book and it was really good, you should totally read it. Oh, well, do you have it? Well, yeah, but it's in the library. Can I read it? Yeah, it's in the library. I know, but I just don't like going to the library. I don't either, that's why I buy my own books. I just don't have money. Do you think I could just borrow it? And I never say no, because I just can't. I don't know if this is a personal thing, because it doesn't seem like it should be a really big deal, but I really don't like lending out books. And it's not just for selfish reasons, but when they're returned to me, they're bent, the pages are ripped, the pages are bent, like, do I need to give you a bookmark, too? My copy of Twilight, someone borrowed it, and now there's this crease all across the cover. My signed copy of The Fault in Our Stars is coming out of its binding. I don't know what you do to a book when you read it that makes it do this, but when you have someone else's book, why are you throwing it around and bending and ripping and tearing it? Half the time, they come back not in the condition that I sent them away in. And half the time, they don't get returned until I have to beg for it. People would keep the books without returning them at all if it were not up to me and my obsessiveness with having the books on my shelf unless I am reading them. And something else that really gets me is when I lend out a book to someone else and that person gives it to someone else. You're cut off the list if you do that. Because how do you say no to these things without sounding like a weird, self-centered book person? Oh, that's me. My friend wants to know if she can read this book after me. Do you mind? It's... Sure. Tell her to go ahead. No problem. The thing that you just saw with the person at the shelf and taking all the books, that's happened before. It happens to me. People do that. People have left my house with 10 of my books and read one of them and returned them months later. Now, I admit people aren't always like this. Sometimes it's just, I can't afford this book, do you think I could borrow it? And they return it as soon as they're done, and it's fine, and that's good. Those people are nice. I like those people. But I've had so many books returned to me, bent and torn, and months later. I am not a library, and if I am, I'm not open for business. This library is closed. What about Les Miserables? Do you have Les Miserables? I kinda wanna read Les Miserables. Go home.